You have just read about how to communicate your intentions to your students. As you watch this video, keep the following questions in the back of your mind. Why is it important to give your students an overview of what you're going to teach before you begin to teach it? How can you help your students obtain ownership of that material? How can you help students develop critical thinking skills naturally? Pretend you're visiting a new city for the first time. Without some kind of directional assistance, like a map or GPS, it would be easy to get lost. On the other hand, someone who has lived in that same city for years could probably find their way around without any assistance at all. Teaching students is comparable to helping a visitor navigate a city. As a teacher, you have months or years of experience with your subject matter. It can be easy to forget that the material may be brand new to your students, and that, as a result, they are much more likely to get lost along the way. Luckily, it is easy to create a roadmap for your students using the BME method. BME stands for Beginning, Middle, End. Incorporating BME in your lesson plans will provide learning landmarks for your students. This will allow each student to check his or her own progress before moving forward, helping to develop individual critical thinking skills. Begin at the beginning. Provide a general overview of your lesson or subject before plunging into the details. You can use a number of methods, such as visuals or group discussions, to start bringing students into the learning experience. The middle is usually the longest part of the lesson, since this is where most of the actual instruction will occur. This phase could take hours, days, or weeks, depending on the complexity of the subject. The more complex the subject, the more landmarks you should provide to ensure that no student gets lost. During the middle of the lesson, make sure you pay attention to individual questions, as well as the progress of the entire class. Wind up your lesson at the end. Connect the lesson to the main ideas that you introduced at the beginning. During this phase, you should also connect the material to your students' personal experiences. Just like the beginning, you can incorporate a number of methods to bring the lesson home. After you've completed your roadmap using the BME method, have your students create a summary of what they've learned. This encourages student-centered learning, which also allows students to create their own understanding of the material so that they truly gain ownership of what they have learned. You can assign reports, art, group projects, or any other work that will allow the students to generate a personal understanding of the material. The opposite of student-centered learning is teacher-centered learning. Teacher-centered learning essentially involves the teacher telling the students exactly what they will be learning, what the expected outcomes are, and how to achieve those outcomes. This type of instruction should be limited. We will focus on the differences between student-centered learning and teacher-centered learning in the next video. In this section, we learned about the importance of creating a learning roadmap for your students and how to employ the BME method to generate that roadmap. You learned that it is usually preferable to bring your students into the lesson as co-learners through student-centered teaching. Remember the questions that you asked yourself at the beginning of this video. Now is a good time to answer those questions. Once you've done that, apply your answers to the themes of this video.